G'day everyone, welcome back to Rule of Reason, and today I have a new guest with me. I've got a little introduction, so we'll start with that. I'm joined by Jaime Heard. He's a 66-year-old semi-retired Queenslander who has served his community as a Justice of the Peace. Jaime has seen the role of JPs evolve over the years, and he's become passionate about what he believes is a growing problem, a political system that gives too much power to politicians and not enough accountability to the people that they serve. In this conversation, we'll explore the history of JPs, community trust, and what he thinks ordinary Australians can do when they feel the system isn't working for them. Whether you agree with this or not, the key is that it represents a voice calling for change. And I think you'll find Jaime's passion thought-provoking and something that you want to at least consider. Jaime, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Zach.
Mate, I thought what we'd do, because most people listening won't know you or your background, how about if you start with a little bit of context, so where you grew up, a little bit of your work life, and then what led you to being here today, in particular with Justice of the Peace and that sort of thing.
All right, we'll put something together there. So, born in Brisbane, 1959, school there, basically hung around Brisbane and everything else until I was 16, 17 and went, something's not right here in the big picture, and I don't like this. I just don't like the way it's set up, so I'm going surfing, basically, So I jumped on Bob Hawke's surf team and surfed around the country for a while. And then in the middle of that got into construction and spent the next 10, 12 years on high-rises in Brisbane, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, up around the Northern Territory, North Queensland. Went into security a little bit later on through martial arts. Did a couple of years in just cruising around Australia. There weren't formal qualifications back then. You didn't have to have your cert for or anything. You just went up to a bloke and said, "Mate, could you teach me to do this?" And they would. And after a couple of years, you became proficient with it, and that was how you became proficient in your trade. So I'm proficient in 3 trades. Carpentry, concrete reinforcement and concreting, flattening wet mud. And then as the body started to wear down, I got more into security and went into teaching security courses and law courses, and through that ended up in Sydney over the Olympics, doing the security for a company called Bottom Line Risk for Hightel. So I was in a 5-star hotel in King's Cross over that period of the Olympics, 2000. And that led me to a position in Indonesia for 2 years, doing security, up-end security there in Indonesia, training, loss prevention. That was a pretty cool gig. That was pretty good. And then came back here and continued a little bit of security, and when that went off, I'd go back to carpentry and just moving around the country. And at 50, I became a voracious reader of fact. I just wanted to know the facts of everything. And the uncomfortable feeling of truth, those uncomfortable truths that it's like, right, okay, cool. That was uncomfortable, but I know the truth. So the last years have been involved around that. And then the COVID period came in, late 2019 to 2024, and got involved in the People's Revolution with that crew. And while I was in that inner circle with Tricky and his mates, one of the barristers who was in the inner circle, he said to me, "You should go and get your JP licence with your background in security and life in general. Go and get your JP thing." And I was like, "Yeah, why would I want to do that?" And he goes, "Well, here, read this." And I had no idea that the JP thing was all set up around human rights. And I said, "Okay, that's got me interested. What goes on there?" And we'll go through that in a minute about
of course,
the outline of it and why it's so powerful as the justices of the peace. So he said to me basically that through these demonstrations when people are getting arrested, if you're a JP and you see a police officer going above and beyond his designated duties and his authorities in dealing with people, like they might get a bit rough-handed with them, you can step up and go, whoa, 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 over the line, it's above your powers, so I'll have your name, your number, and we'll look after this person and we'll see you in court for that. And I was like, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. Read some more. So I read some more, and it was like, yeah, okay. I'm at an age now where it is service for others. And that's where you'll find your gems in life, when you come to service for others. So I've pursued this pretty heavily. I've committed myself to a lot of community service around the JPs thing. If somebody calls me at 8:30 at night and goes, man, I need something, yeah, cool, man, I'll meet you at the shops. And under lights, we'll sign their papers that they need to have tomorrow morning that they should have done last week. But nobody ever rings the justices of the peace to go, how's your dog? How's your folks, you know? They want something, they need something. They don't even want anything, they need something done, you know? And that's the role of the JP, is to be there for them and help them through that. And so over that period, I was starting to get well known in the community as a JP, you know.
Yep.
You know, give the guy a call, man, he'll come to you even, you know. And then the way this has all evolved with the governments and the role of the justices of the peace, like it's interesting ground for me, because I'm part of the receivers of what's being handed down with this overreach and unaccountability within the government. However, I have a role to be the representatives of the people between the people and the governments. So pretty much I started out as a surfie hanging around the coast to where I am now today, with looking to enact these powers of the JPs that have been suppressed and just, no, you can't talk about it. And it's like, well, you know, and the more it goes on, you know, and we could go down the Gaza Road with that there's certain times you just can't be quiet. There's an old saying that says, if you don't stand for something, you will take a knee for everything.
Yeah. So it's probably fair to say, because you've obviously had a very varied life up until now, that's allowed you to cross paths with lots of different types of people. Not everyone has the epiphany that you've had, that I'm now in service of others because of the path that I've trodden in my life. So that's one thing that I would credit to you, is that it's good. It's great that you're doing that. Did you want to, because I know that you know a lot about it, did you want to dive into the history of JPs so people know that?
Yeah, we will, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
With that diversity thing too, you know. Like I've spent a lot of time in Torres Straits and Indigenous communities. The 2 years that I spent in Indonesia was the largest Muslim community in the world. And so when I first went there, it was like, oh, what am I going into? Because I'd been brainwashed about how, you know, nefarious these people were. And it was a complete and utter lie. And I was totally ashamed of myself after being there for a few weeks, you know, because they had no idea who I was. They invited me into their homes, food, water, whatever, and they had nothing. You know, these are bamboo huts on dirt floors kind of stuff. And we'd sit around the fire at night, because there was only one television in most of the villages that I was in. And we'd talk. The elders and I would talk, and we'd talk philosophy and religion, and that was an expansion. That was like, wow, that was an uncomfortable truth, that when I embraced it, it was like, wow, this is really beautiful, this multicultural thing, you know. Like I love going to Sydney and going into the multicultural areas and just eat at one end and work your way out the other end, you know, of all these different foods. So in Australia, we have 270 ethnic groups, over 200 languages spoke. we are highly likely the most diverse culture on the planet at the moment, with so many boiled in. And our grandmother used to tell us that many colours make a beautiful quilt. So we have an opportunity here to make one of the most colourful, beautiful, warm quilts for humanity. And, if you don't put your chin out, you're not going to see if anyone's going to tap it, And I've never been backward in coming forward and putting the chin out, so here we are today speaking with Zach about the JPs. And
it's good. It's good that you are. I mean, there are lots of things in the world at the moment that it's not always comfortable to talk about.
Yeah,
but if you don't, the result it may be more comfortable in the short term, but far worse in the long term. Yeah,
and it's far worse for your kids and your grandkids and my grandkids and everybody else's grandkids out there and your descendants from here. That what we do makes a difference in 10, 20, 50 years' time. And I'll put this straight out there. The reason that we're in the mess that we're in right now is our fault.
Yeah.
30 years ago, or 50 years ago, when this started to come in 1978 with Whitlam and everything else, that we just went, oh, yeah, she'll be right, because that was the narrative. So we just let them go. And we didn't check them, we didn't hold them accountable. And that was our fault, because they went, what if we do this? Went, oh, I don't know. Well, let's try it. And when they got away with it, they went, no one's watching us. They don't care. Let's do this. And here we are now, where it's just escalated to the point where it's pretty hard to corral these people into a corner. So it has to get done. It just has to get done right now. Of course it does. Most people are paying an average of $1.2 million for a house. Give me a break. Blocks of land in Brisbane sold for $2.8 million. It's just like, no. This is for one of my mates. Profit at all cost. He'll know who I'm talking about. Yeah? But this corporate greed over public need is like, no, come on. Time out here. This is just way over the top now. You're stretching that rubber band too much. That bowstring, it'll come back to you.
It's I would, if I'm to interject, say that we're starting to witness the extreme of where capitalism goes, and like all systems, there is a middle ground where it works best, and perhaps, as you said earlier before we started recording, the 60s, 70s, 80s was really good, and it provided that growth and that life that everyone could work an honest living and have a house and a family and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But as that continues to expand to the point that it is now, where if you're at the very, very top, you take most of it, and everyone at the bottom just gets told, no, this is how it's supposed to be. It's gone beyond a point now where it's sustainable. Even for those making the money, like, it's going to fall apart eventually. And if we don't do something soon, we're all going to be a part of the collapse.
Yeah, and the collapse is coming. If like, pretty much every morning I'll spend an hour and a half doing geopolitics, or just whatever I can absorb in, and we're pretty close to toppling. The US dollar's not looking real flash. BRICS is looking really strong. The East blocks, the Southern South blocks, but in the West, in this capitalist environment, we're not looking real good at all. You're 100% correct in that. And 10 years ago, I'm 55, right? And I'm thinking, 56, and I'm thinking, we're done. We're down the toilet. No one's, like our generation now, the ones who are going, yeah, and the younger generation going, you're conspiracy theorists, sit back down, old people, blah, 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 blah. But now, especially after that COVID period, that jolted a whole lot of people who was like, there's conspiracy theories, there's no chemtrails, there's no this, there's no cloud seeding, no, the government would never do that to us. Bang, that 25 to 40 year age group just went, hang on. And it's like, your generation is now the one, like Nepal in the last couple of weeks, you know. This generation now, I've got a huge sigh of relief, like going, finally, these guys have woken up, and you are going to be the voice and the force that turns this. Like the elderly, the elders are there to guide. Because we've had enough punching on. Yeah. It's your turn. So it's, you know, and I think we're in a really, really powerful time to really flip this, where we've got really good elders across the board. Especially, I spend a reasonable amount of time in the Muslim community and the Sikh community and the Indian community and the Central Asian communities, you know, Thais and Vietnam and it's across the board, this feeling of like, okay, we're all walking the same planet. You know, like, you're my brother. That's, if we go back far enough, I'm pretty sure we started with the same people kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So we're all the same. We might have different colours, we might have different cultures, we might have different beliefs, but as long as no one's tapping anyone on the chin or looking to tap anyone on the chin, salam alaikum. Peace be upon you. And you reply, wa alaikum salam, and upon you be peace. Like, do we really need anything more than that? I can get cranky and go, no, I've had enough of that. Or if he goes, no, I go, okay, cool, done. Sorry, overstepped my boundaries, I'll pull back. If we can just get to that stage, without these endless wars and blah, blah, blah going on, we've got a really good chance of marrying this new technology with growing our own food and being fully organic and being in touch with the universe again, you know, grounding. And you know, I think we've got a really good shot at this now.
I think a lot of people forget, and I quite like history, that it goes in waves, and every great empire that I've ever studied at one point thought we're too big to fail, and yet they failed. And I think that's where we are at the moment with Western societies. Things don't look good, but lots of people are just burying their head in the sand going, well, we're too big to fail. But you're just big enough to fail. That's sort of the attitude I see for, what's the word? For people being complacent, going, it's not as bad as we think it is. It's like, no, actually, you probably need to consider it really seriously. It is as bad as you think it is. And if you want to save Western society from demise, people need to do something about it. And I agree that the solution, which is what I'm trying to purvey through this podcast, is that 99% of people in this world might be saying different things, but the underlying life goal is the same. Yeah. They care for the people around them. They want safety, security, and health for their family, and they want to live a peaceful life. And I think most people want that. So it's really just the outliers in every group. It doesn't matter what race, religion, ethnic group you are. It's always the extreme outliers that cause the problems that then drag everyone under. It would be nice to learn from history and not allow the decay to happen again because of those either at the top or at the bottom rising up with anger and destroying the other people, because that just starts the cycle all over again. Mm-hmm.
Well, we see that in Australia here, don't we? When all those people got out to march a few weeks ago and they were labelled as far-right sovereign being citizens and, you know, just all these derogatory terms, when they were just people who were like, hey, listen, I want a voice here. And I have an issue with protest and contest. Like, if you for something, yeah, you're pro that. Are you against it? I'm con that. Pros and cons of something, yeah? So I think of as a protest, a demonstration should be a contest. We're contesting that decision. We're not protesting against it. So what those people were doing was contesting the decisions that were being made without their consent by a parliament who knows how Zach Rule should be living his life with his family. Mm. Back that up a little bit, you know, you're out of your bounds there.
And you shouldn't, and I don't think anyone should be chastised for waving their national flag and saying, I'm proud of my country and I want it to be the way that it used to be. I mean, people can read into that what they want, but based on what you've already talked about today, we have multiple cultures in this country. And I would say most of the members of those cultures unite under that flag. You can look for offence in it, or you can choose to accept that every country has its flaws, but ours is one of the better ones, and we're doing our best to go forward together. Let's try and do that. Find what unites us and move forward together as one of the greatest countries on earth, rather than going, but we made a few mistakes, so we're terrible. No, that's not the way forward.
Yeah, mistakes are just lessons.
Correct.
You know, the only time you'll ever fail as such, mine, is that when you give up on yourself. You know, you can give up on things and games and whatever else, but if you give up on yourself, then you're lost. Otherwise, everything's just been a lesson to go, okay, don't do that. Don't do stages 2, 3 and 4, you know, until you do stage 1, that kind of stuff. I think we're...
Yeah. Well, I think now might be a good time if you want to dive into the history of JPs, because as I've already said to you, I didn't know this about JPs. And so if I don't, let's assume that most people probably don't. And I think it'll be quite illuminating for a lot of people.
Yeah. Even justices of the peace are a little bit put back when I put this to them. So there's my appointment letter from the Attorney General of Queensland. Yeah. So it lets me know that I am has sworn and affirmed allegiance to well and truly serve, this is when Queen Elizabeth was still here, serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, in the office of Justice of the Peace, and do right to all manner of people according to law, without fear or favour, affection or ill will. Like, that's just on the appointment letter there.
And it's a bold statement.
Yeah, it is. And there's so much in here that, like, even the police take an oath to that effect, that they will do right to all manner of people, in essence, and to the subjects of the king, not the corporations. I'm in the deep end. I might as well keep swimming.
You might as well keep going.
Keep swimming, yeah. So this is how I see government. The government belongs to the people. That's like when they get up and they say, our government's doing this now, I go, hey, whoa. It's our government, you work for us, because your wages are being paid by the constituents. And with elected members, they got elected through a thing called a political mandate, which is the constituents, through a fair and honest voting system, right, they have chosen a person that they wish to represent. So they are granted the authority to represent. That's how that works. From Albanese down, you are granted the authority to represent our wishes for the betterment of our community. That's gone out the window. They're not in our interests, they're for the corporate interest now. That's, corporate greed's just over the top now. So that, the essence of government has been lost. And we've basically lost it, we handed it over to them, basically. So it needs to be reined back in. The horse has had too much free rein, he needs to be just pulled back in a little bit,
Yep.
Tighten that rein a bit. And they now, like when they make laws now, they exempt themselves. But you and I are paying, but they are exempted. Okay, we need a pay rise, so an independent body. And they're Teflon coated with this, I can't be prosecuted. And there's a thing called plausible deniability. I didn't know what was going on, that doesn't roll here. Your employees, and they need to be treated, from Anthony Albanese down, they all need to be treated, elected or non-elected, need to be treated as employees. If you step out of line in any business, and this is a multi-billion-dollar business we're talking about here, and we'll just go for Queensland at the moment, we have a vested financial interest in the outcome of all of this. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And in this scenario, the keyboard player or the musician, he's calling the shots. How much you're going to pay me, or I'm not playing, blah, 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 blah. And it has to be turned back around and put in perspective that the government belongs to the people, and these people are employees, and they're accountable for every action. And at that level of service to your community, to mankind, that great positions come with great responsibility. And Dan Andrews once said one of his things, it is an offence and a breach in the highest order, and that's why the consequences and the fines will be of the highest order. And it has to be like that with our employees. So let's have a look at the top of Queensland, top of New South Wales, all the government bodies. That's our upper management. They're the ones we granted the authority to manage our affairs. So they're upper management. This is not about overthrowing any governments. The government's working okay. You know, it could be tweaked, as any business could. But that upper management, shit flows downhill, and we're getting covered in it at the moment. Everybody, they're not missing any culture, any ethnic group. We're all in this boat together. And they need to be held accountable, and the senators are supposed to do that. The senators are the ones who are supposed to be the guardians and the watchdogs and go, no, you can't approve that, we're not having that, blah, 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 blah. And all we're getting at the moment is lip service from our own employees. That needs to be addressed. So you take number one out and push number two up and go, okay, what happened to number one's going to happen to you because you're an employee. So let's not overstep our boundaries here.
I will step in and say the argument, I guess, with democracy is if the government is not serving the people as they are supposed to, the election comes around and they don't get re-elected.
Yeah.
I guess the problem that we're having, and this has happened over a long period of time, is as politics has become more toxic, more and more good people take a peek behind the curtain and go, I can't be involved in this because I can't, like, no matter how good my intentions are, I can't see anything possibly changing because there's just too much happening behind the scenes that I can't change. Because if I poke my head up, it'll get bitten off. And so more good people leave and they're replaced by more people that are happy to play the game. And then you're left with, well, whether I vote for one party or the other or an independent or whoever, it doesn't really matter who I vote for because I get the same result. I think that's the problem that we're facing. I mean, you can see that at a federal level at the moment where you go, well, Anthony Albanese and his colleagues aren't doing a great job, but the alternatives are no better. So you sit there as a citizen and go, well, does it really matter who I vote for? The end result's the same. So it's not a great place to be politically.
No.
But the other problem is, and anything where it comes down to a commodity that is invented like an iPhone, or social media, even if it is created with the best of intentions, everything has a good and a bad use. Doesn't matter what it is. This chair is designed so that we can sit, but I could smash you over the head with it, right? So everything has a good and a bad. You can't create one without the other. It's how you have balance. Democracy is the same. It's the current democratic system we have is the least bad political system. But if the wrong people use the power, ultimate power corrupts ultimately. So I'm not saying that the politicians that we have right now are corrupted by power, but there's too much, that corporate greed that you touched on is causing, I think, too much of an influence just through natural human instinct. If someone says to you, hey, you might not get re-elected next time, but if you do this for me now, you don't need to worry about what happens after. And so then there's just that little creep that people went in with really good intentions. I'm going to make my electorate great. I'm going to help make the country better. And then just a little bit of compromise and a little bit of compromise. And before you know it, you've completely changed the way you're doing things. So I don't want to sit here and say that politicians are bad people. But even the best people can make subtle changes over time to no longer be really interested in the general public.
Yeah. And we've got some great politicians at the moment who are speaking up. We were talking about this the other day, that we get good lip service from a lot of the politicians, but nothing gets done. No one ever gets pulled up. No one is held accountable. No one gets charged. Because we got people, and one of the things that grinds my gears is we got people in here in Australia, Queensland, Australia, sitting in prisons for not paying parking fines and speeding fines, while all this corruption is going on. And it is corruption. Let's call a spade a spade. All this corruption going on. And we do have good politicians and young up-and-comers and some old ones, like, if you want to get tapped on the chin, call Bob Catter. Don't make me bring Bob down here. So we do have some good politicians. However, the corporate money that's involved in it is way over the top and it needs to be checked. There's a businessman in Hong Kong. He's a business leader, Donnie Chan. And in an interview in 2018, these two European journalists were just grilling him, and they didn't know that he was a historian as well. So everything they hit him with about how bad China was and how this and how they, and they're going to take over the world. He's about money and politics, and he said, well, words to the effect, it's a fact of human history that you can never truly divorce economics from politics. However, economics grows political strength. And if you don't have political strength, you need political strength because it is essential to maintain your economic growth. So we need economic input. However, to the point where they're paying off, I'm absolutely 100% sure, and we'll go into that in a minute with the JP stuff, that there is corruption going on at a very deep level, and there's a lot of backroom deals going on. Otherwise, we would be selling all our resources at the mean international rate. They would be getting charged tax at the mean international company rate, blah, blah, blah. So there's backroom deals getting done there. Absolutely no doubt at all. It's just too in your face. However, if we look at China, communist China, look where they've gone in 30 years. They dragged 300 million people out of poverty up. They didn't drag them out. They helped them out of poverty up into middle class. Where that country now, if you have a really good look at China, this is a communist country. It's full of billionaires. It's full of millionaires. So there is a point where that form of government can allow that freedom of growth of the population without that overriding domination of the corporate greed where they come in and they go, no, you do what, if you do what I say, you can, we'll give you money next time.
What I will say though, just as an opposition to that point, not to be critical of China, but more that the billionaires that you see in China were not allowed under Mao's China, which was pure communism.
Yeah.
And then in the more recent years, they've seen that the economic growth from the capitalistic side of business does help them out. So it's a pseudo-communism. It's not communism in the sense of
It's not Mao communism.
It's almost like a hybrid of capitalism and communism together.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is if China goes to war or something bad happens, they can just take all your assets and go, this is the States now.
They're never going to do that. China will never do that.
I understand, but I'm just saying, like...
But that's the narrative we're fed. If these guys get too big...
Well, that's what the manifesto says. The manifesto says they can do that. So I know that you and I, like from a practical standpoint, we would say it makes no sense to do that. But it's written into the manifesto that they can do that.
That's the West Manifesto.
Sure, but it's also written from Marx. So it comes back
For sure.
Yeah.
However, they've found a balance where they can still do that. They've progressed out of that Mao Zedong thing into this, as you say, a hybrid version of the one government. You don't have 12 different parties to where we can still have an amazing growth with the people. Like if you've got, and Ibrahim Traore out of Burkina Faso, the young leader in there, he's proved that in a matter of a few years that you need to look after your sovereign resources and your sovereign food. Look after your resources and look after your food. The people will be happy and everything will grow with it. And you can still have... You need rules, you need boundaries.
Of course you do.
That's a gimme, you know.
I mean, that's how Singapore became Singapore, is they laid out some really strict rules and said, if you share the vision, these are the rules, but if you follow these, we'll be successful. Singapore seems pretty great, so...
It does, doesn't it? So...
But it does, but this, I will just say, for everyone watching at home, all of these things come with sacrifices.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we are trying to live in a society where we're told, oh, no, there's no rules, no boundaries. You do whatever you want, you be whoever you want to be, and that's great. If you want to have a flourishing society, say like Singapore, there are very strict sacrifices that each individual must make for the greater vision of where we can go. That's just an aside that I'll put in there. Because a lot of people go, oh, well, I want to be great like that too, but I'm not willing to make any sacrifices. It's like, well, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. If you want extraordinary things to happen in your life, you need to go to extraordinary lengths to make them happen.
Mm.
So, but that model of China, in Russia at the moment, you know, you have a look at their cities and their public transport and stuff, that warrants attention. Okay, that's really working. Look at our stuff. There needs to be a marrying up and an attention given to those things that, okay, we don't like that, and that, but that, and that, man, that's excellent. Can we adopt that? So Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, in that Sahel region, you know, he's proved that if you go, okay, we're not giving you raw materials, we'll give you the finished product, and we're going to do our own refining, and we're going to do our own marketing, and we're going to grow our own food. We're not going to import it. And now they're exporting their food, their produce. Mm. So it can be done with sacrifice.
Correct. yeah, exactly. So, and that's the problem that we have is in my assessment, in order for Australia to get back on track with where it used to be, will require sacrifice from everyone, and it'll hurt for a little bit, but it can be done.
It wouldn't hurt as much as it's hurting now.
I think you would have more pain in the short term for less pain long term.
Yeah.
That would be my assessment. Yeah. But if you choose to be one of those people who looks more than 5 years ahead or 3 years ahead, because a politician's looking 3 years ahead, right? They just got their election cycle. They go, well, all I need to do is enough in this one to get into the next one. If you could look 50 years ahead and go, well, what about my kids? And what about their kids? What are they going to have? And at the moment they go, well, they're going to have crippling national debt, no manufacturing. AI and robotics is rising up to the point where service jobs will disappear. Mm-hmm. So then you've got a large portion of the population that doesn't work. So then you've got a welfare state that is unsustainable. Like, they're not good signs, right?
Not.
And the only way to avoid those is to go, all right, we need a full U-turn. All right, where do we want to be? What are we looking for our future? Let's actually list off what we want it to be. How do we get from where we are to there? Gee, that seems tough. Well, let's put it out to the people. Do you want the country to fall apart, or do you want a bit of hard times to get the good times? I reckon most people would rally behind the good times.
Yeah.
But it requires politicians who go, I'm willing to put policy in to achieve that. And if once it's succeeded, even if I'm not in and it's the opposition party that is in, it's okay that it's not me reaping the politics points for it, because I just want to see my country be great. Which is why democracy was set up the way that it was in the first place. That people were sacrificed of themselves. They did whatever was best for the country, irrespective of whether they were going to be in power or not when it came to realization. And when your time was up, your time was up. But that's not, it's become a career now where it's like, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to try and be in here as long as I can because this is the most money I'll ever earn because it's all about me. Yeah. Which is that's not the point of being a politician.
And they see that, like, shit, I only do 7 years, I can retire for the rest of my life and not ever work again, you know. And most of the politicians that we have never done too much concreting or steel fixing or bricklaying or, you know, you fly in and out all the time, so your schedule's all over the place, you know. So this is where we are right now. is like an engine. It needs to be pulled apart, new bearings, new rings, new this, new that, put it back together. Okay, now it's running nice, And having said that, if we go back to the old rule, like, okay, we'll let the politicians sort this out, we'll end up in the same mess we did, because no one's watching the kindergarten. We put all these kids in a and they do. I've thought about going into politics around here, and when I watch sessions of Parliament, Queensland or anywhere else, it's like I couldn't do that. My anger management would be through the roof.
The way they behave, you just think, oh my gosh, you're meant to be adults and respectable individuals, but this is so childish.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a responsibility not to do that. They have a responsibility to serve, to represent.
Well, and I've heard people say, oh no, but that's just the way that people behave in the chamber. I'm like, if you were to watch the chamber in 1950, do you think that's how they behaved, or the way they spoke to one another? Not at all. They were actually quite respectable. Did they raise their voices? Of course they did, because they were having passionate arguments. But the jeering and the calling each other names and just being petty,
childish.
It's like that. It didn't used to be that way.
No, it wasn't.
And so now when you hear them say, oh, the right honourable member for such and such, like, that's sort of lost its meaning with the way that you're all behaving.
The honourable. Yeah.
Well, you know how they're all called the right honourable member of McPherson or whatever. It's like, well, behave as your name and your title dictates.
Honour's earned. It's not given.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys haven't earned that title of being honourable. And if we don't put, back to the JPs, if we don't put a watchdog, the junkyard dogs, in place where we are, because the Justice of the Peace is honorary role. There's no payment for this. Like, I'm not even allowed to accept. I know a lady who had her suspended because she received flowers. Like, it's like, no, this is fully honorary. If I go out at 8 o'clock at night and mate, this is the service, I'm here to help. This is the whole thing about this. And my thing is to get 100, 300 JPs from as many ethnic groups that we've got in Australia as we can, and we become that watchdog, that council of justices that sits above the senators and goes, all right. And we don't want to know the ins and outs. We don't want to know how you got to the deal, what you did to do it. We want to know the deal from a Justice of the Peace point of view and go, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, we'll allow you to do that because we are the representatives of the people. We can't be bought, we can't be bribed. It's an honorary role. It's a really, it's a really powerful role. We'll get into sooner or later we'll get into it.
Yeah, of course.
But for that council of justices to become those watchdogs and go, no, you can't do that. And if we can't decide between the, say, 300, and we meet 3 times a year or 4 times a year for our employees to say what they would like to do, because if you want to do something, you ask us, because we're the employer, you're the employees, elected and non-elected, and we'll review your remuneration while we're chatting later in the track. But, and if we can't decide, then we go, okay, we're stuck in the middle here, hold a referendum.
Let the people decide.
Let them decide, because they have the financial vested interest in this. They're the ones who need to go, we're comfortable with this. And not whether or not blokes should marry blokes or women should marry women or whatever, just don't give me that. Like, seriously, get that out of my face. I want something with substance. And if we can hold that space, the JPs can hold that space, we have a really good chance of being uncomfortable for a little bit. It'll hurt for a little bit. Like, if you're paying school fees for a private school, which I've done, I had a lady say to me once she was putting through 3, and I only had 1 going through it, and that was hurting me. And 3? You put 3 through that school? And she goes, yeah. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Mm-hmm. Done.
Well, I heard the comedian Jimmy Carr, right? He's a comedian, but he's actually a really smart guy. Yeah. And someone asked him something like, what's the meaning of life or something, a heckler trying to be smart ass. And he said, little pain now for great enjoyment later. It's like really simple philosophy. You know, the short-term pain, long-term gain.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. For anyone who's listening who goes, can a justice of the peace really do this? I mean, they just sort of witness my passport whenever I need to get a new one, and that's all they do, right?
Yeah.
Maybe do you want to dive into that now so they can go, oh, they can do more than that?
Yeah.
Because, again, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So...
Because that's what they tell the justices of the peace. You're there to sign papers, you know, do that work for us, you know, that we can't do in the office kind of stuff. And now that's gone digital as well. But this here is the code of conduct of the justices of the peace. This is our guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to read the first 5 and then I'm going to read number 17 to you. And the JPs and CDECs shall act and make decisions in a way that is compatible with human rights. This helps ensure their decisions are based on principles of human dignity, equality, freedom and the rule of law. Pretty straightforward. So law is all about the interpretation of words, yeah? So I interpret that to be, I look after human rights, regardless of culture, creeds, religions, philosophies, whatever. JPs and number 2, JPs and CDECs shall be prepared to contribute time and effort to the service of society pursuant to their solemn undertaking on application of appointment. And I find it a very solemn application of appointment. I take that oath, I take oaths extremely seriously. And so it is, you know, sacred kind of thing. Number 3, JPs and CDECs shall at all times serve their fellow citizens with courtesy, dignity, consideration and compassion. And with 270 ethnic groups, let it go. You know, just we are each other. In Lakesh Alaka, in kind of stuff, you know. I am you, you are me. Number 4, JPs and CDECs shall not act with bias, prejudice, intolerance, bigotry, malice and ill will. They shall pursue the principles of equity and social justice as consistent criteria in all their dealings within the community. Straightforward. Mm-hmm. Number 5, JPs and CDECs shall perform their functions with dignity, rationality and decorum. They shall not use their title where it is inappropriate, irrelevant or insensitive to do so, or in such a way as to bring the office into public disrepute or derision. So derision, don't make us a laughing stock. Mm-hmm. So, to me, all that's very clear. I'm there for the people. Number 17, this is one of my favourites. JPs and CDECs must retain their independence and must never regard themselves as servants of any law enforcement agency. That's pretty powerful. That's telling me that the JPs and the CDECs have the authority over politicians, magistrates, judges, police officers, over that bureaucratic role. We are the middlemen. So further to that, I'll get into these little bits. So when I became a JP, I swore an oath, and she goes, oh, here, read this oath. The magistrate said, read this oath. And I went, oh, that's not the oath I've been studying. And she goes, there's another oath? And I went, yeah, you didn't know? And she goes, no. I said, can I do both? She went, yeah, right. So I did. I swore both oaths at that. So I'll just do my oath. This is what a JP will say. I, Jaime Heard, do sincerely promise and swear that as a Justice of the Peace for the State of Queensland, I will at all times and in all things do equal justice to the poor and the rich and discharge the duties of my office according to the law to the best of my knowledge and ability, without fear, favour, affection or ill will, so help me.
That's the one that she gave you?
No, that's the one that I...
Okay.
The one that she gave me was I, Jaime Heard, do swear that I will well and truly serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors in the office of Justice of the Peace, and I will do right to all manner of people according to the law, without fear or favour, affection or ill will, so help me God. So it's virtually the same thing. It's just been condensed a little bit, you know, but it's the same thing. I will do equal justice in all things to the rich and the poor. The police officer is the same. In essence, it's the same, without reading that. So the basis of the JPs, this is the start of it. and it's just as easy to read this out. In the year 1195, King Richard I introduced a system of peace officers to enforce the king's peace. I love this bit. Any offence against the peace was considered to be an offence against the king himself and was therefore treated severely. So disturbing the peace was of the highest offence that you could do, right? And that's why the peace officers were put in place. And then as time evolved, so they were roving. They would just go around different municipalities or
What year was that?
95, right? Like, so we're talking, you know,
Yeah, almost 100 years ago. Hey, yeah, sorry, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is back then. They knew that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. He knew that was going to happen. So whether it was the authorities he'd put in place under the king's authority, or whether it was just some potato farmer,
Yep.
or whatever else, there was a level of do not disturb the peace. And if the landholder was causing the trouble, then he got addressed, and vice versa.
Did that change under the Magna Carta, or it was still the same?
Still the same. It's never been changed. Hey, it's been watered down. There's a really good story around how today came about as well. So justices of the peace are citizens who are entrusted and encouraged by the community to take on special responsibilities, from witnessing the signing of documents, which is like that's all you do, to hearing certain types of court matters. So under that hearing certain types of court matters, 2 justices of the peace qualified can designate a magistrate's court. One justice of the peace qualified and one justice of the peace magistrate can constitute a magistrate's court for procedural matters. So you can go, yeah, okay, pump it up, or how do you feel about it? No, dismiss it, whatever, you know, but it's procedural. So we have those powers, We have those powers that, above signing papers, that we are responsible for because we're entrusted by the community to represent them. Now, this is from the state government in their legislation. The JP still acts on many occasions, and this is powerful again, as a check and balance on the powers of state authorities, including the Queensland Police Service.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Like I've shown that to police officers, barristers, solicitors, and they've gone, I've never seen that. I've shown that to politicians and they've gone, oh, no. Oh, there it is. Oh, okay.
And for anyone listening along, this is in the Queensland Legislative Act.
Yeah, if you want to become a JP, this is the stuff that they give you to go through. And they give you acts to read and whatever.
More clarifying for people who are listening going, oh, this guy's just making up stuff out of some pamphlet that he's got. So this is in Queensland's laws.
Yes.
It's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, so it is the JP's responsibility to exercise discretion in all of their judicial functions, such as when determining to issue a warrant or a summons. So for a police officer, he has 2 ways he can interview somebody, question somebody. Under Section 360, he can arrest without warrant because he feels that he's satisfied on reasonable grounds that there's a criminal offence being committed or they're being complicit in that. So he can arrest them without warrant. The other way is to have all his evidence and he presents it to a justice of the peace and says, I want to go and arrest this person. They've been complicit in criminal activity. Here's my evidence. And I sit down and I read through it. And there's only one thing that I need to be is satisfied on reasonable grounds, not beyond reasonable doubt, just satisfied on reasonable grounds that that person has been complicit in a criminal offence, committing a crime. So where does that open us up to? The JPs, especially when we're looking at the COVID period and we're looking at the deals that have been done with the mining around the country and in construction across all sectors. there's backroom deals going on. There has to be. You know, you'd have to be really not paying attention to think that everything's kosher up the top. So in that, it opens it up to it raises the question, could 100 justices of the peace go, yeah, we're satisfied on reasonable grounds that there was criminal activity performed and complicit in criminal activities by our upper management in government. And there's so much evidence out there now that, yet that did happen. You know, if you want to go down the path of Peter McCullough, David Martin, all these researchers, Kari Madej, Lee Merritt, just endless people that have done research on what's happened over that and joining the dots. You know, everything from pharmaceutical companies to mainstream media companies to politicians around the world. We're complicit in that. I'm satisfied on reasonable grounds, that those people have questions to answer. And they need to be held accountable and they need to be...
Well, so I guess my question just from listening to this is, if you had your 100 JPs and you had your list of people that you believed, as you said, it doesn't need to be beyond reasonable doubt, had been involved in or committed a criminal offence, would you still require a magistrate or an officer, police officer, in order to progress it further? Like, where does the line sort of draw for where you go, well, we've decided we've got reasonable assumption that this person's been involved. What's the next?
So that's, like, the whole thing's sticky. Because I can designate a police officer as a justice of the peace, any justice of the peace can designate a police officer to go and arrest that person under these conditions. I'm satisfied that happens. So we can go to that point. However, for a transition, those justices of the peace need backup from the legal fraternity. They need to know that the paperwork is watertight. It's a steel-clad drum of evidence, and here you go, knock yourselves out, sign these papers. We do need the good police officers that are true to their oath, that they will protect the people, not the corporate interests, and they will, without fear, favour, affection or ill will, to the good, all parties, rich or poor, and we address this. And like you were saying before, not all politicians are bad. We know that, because there's some ones that are really stepping up and playing the mark now. So we do need to carry something like that forward. You do need good solicitors, barristers, whatever,
Yep.
Legal. We need legal counsel for that, and we need police officers who are prepared to go, yeah, all right, this has gone on long enough. Like, who got hurt the most out of that period? And it keeps, it's always, I'm not going to, that was the COVID period. It's not the C period, it's the COVID period. That's what it is. Who got hurt the most out of all of that? Not the general population. We got locked down, and did this, and you didn't have to wear a mask. You could have said no. You didn't have to, but everyone did. 85% of people took the knee. Where was I going with that? I lost that track.
You were just talking about what was required. You've got your 100 JPs.
Yeah. With that, it has to be that common unity, the community group of people who are going, okay, we need to do this, so let's stand together. We'll put most of our differences aside and agree on this one point, that this needs to be done. But who got hurt the worst? That's where I was going with that. Who got hurt the worst out of that period were the services workers, the police, the teachers, the nurses, the ambos. So the people who took the oath to present were the ones who were forced to do the most by their masters. Because if you don't, you're going to lose your job, you'll lose your house, you're going to kill grandma and granddad, and you'll lose your family probably. You'll lose everything if you don't. That's you know, a mandate is a written request. So it's not a law until you accept that written request to do something against your will. So it's interesting that the ones who I'm having difficulty speaking with about that level are the ones who were hurt the most.
It was an interesting time. So for me, my personal story is because my work was international at the time. I spent 264 days, not in a row, but total isolated. I had police coming around to my house every other day, making sure I hadn't left. But what I found quite interesting, because I would have chats with them when they came around, because I was isolating, so I had no one to talk to, is they were often detectives in the drug squad. And so I would have the conversation and say, sorry, so if you're a drug squad detective, who's policing drug crime right now? He said, oh, well, actually our whole unit is doing door knocking at the moment. And it just sort of just threw me that the idea that, I mean, sure, could I have left my house? I could have. I didn't, but I could have. But is that worse than millions and millions of dollars of illegal drugs coming in because the criminals know there's no police looking after it? You know, it just sort of blew my mind. And the funny thing was, they always said, this is ridiculous, but it's what we've been told to do. And I would always ask them the question, just because you've been asked to do it, does it mean you have to do it? Is it lawful for them to ask you to do it? I said, I'm not telling you one way or the other. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm just asking you to think about it, because you don't just have to do what you're told. If it's lawful, if you don't agree or not, doesn't matter. If someone's broken the law and you've been told arrest that person, you have a responsibility to do that. We're not talking about that. What I'm saying is, what you're being asked to do now, do you believe it's lawful? Because if it's not, you don't have to do it. And they're like, oh, well, it's too hard to just go against it. I'm like, I understand it's hard to say, oh, I'm not doing that. Because then you'll get the threats of, oh, well, you won't have a job tomorrow if you don't do it. But then you go, okay, well, you show me where I've not done my job. Because my job is not to be the war machine of
Yes.
politicians. And that's what it felt like. We've blocked the border. We've got checkpoints on the border.
Which was totally illegal.
Yeah, we've got people locked in their houses that can't leave their houses. People aren't allowed to have their jobs because they wouldn't take the vaccine. And it's all enforced by the police. And you go, but that's not what police are for. And you might argue, and maybe some people at home are listening going, well, it could be in times of war, for example.
Yeah, that's in the legislation.
I felt, and again, I'm going to preface this by saying this is my belief. There were too many governments at the time that used emergency powers when I didn't think the definition of an emergency situation had been met.
Overreach.
But there was no one to sort of say, okay, I guess the question that I always ask, and again, it's just my personal opinion, who is in place to keep the government accountable from accessing those powers within the legislature? Because it's there, right? Those powers are there for a reason. But if there's no one to say yes or no, like the government should have to come forward and say, we've ticked all the boxes for emergency powers, that now means we can do this. There needs to be someone on the other side who goes, oh, actually, no, you haven't quite met all the the requirements for that, so you can't do that yet. There needs to be someone. Otherwise, the government goes, oh, yeah, a tree fell over and all the power's out, so it's emergency. We're going to lock everyone down. What's to stop them from doing whatever they want? Yeah, so that's my 2 cents. I interrupted.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly right. This became clear and evident over that period as well, that 85% of people will do what they're told regardless of what is right. 15% of people will do what is right regardless of what they are told. And that's what we need that from the police, that what they're being told, it doesn't even come in line with human rights. It's totally against all those human rights. Like number one in the Nuremberg Code is the informed consent of the human subject, which is great, a human subject. The informed consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. And that was the first one that they just bounced and booted out the door. It was so. Who's going to look after us? Mm. And it appears that it's the justices of the peace. And that point you just brought up about what rights we have, our laws are built around the Catholics, the Bible, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Catholic culture. This is number 2242. So in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, 2242. The citizen is obliged in conscience not to follow the directions of civil authorities when they are contrary to the demands of the moral order. Right, this is what our constitution and our laws were built on. It's our right not to follow. To the fundamental rights of persons or the teachings of the gospel, refusing obedience to civil authorities when their demands are contrary to those of an upright conscience, finds its justification in the distinction between serving God and serving the political community. Jesus. Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. We must obey God rather than men. And that's what we need to put in place, that we've got a council of justices who are speaking up for us. Mm. And it's all there. When over that period, there was a few of us looked at an Australian Council of Justices of the Peace, and for the Justices of the Peace, countrywide, lock arms, one solid force and voice. And as it turned out, when we started, and we were in touch with JPs from every state, and Queensland's the only state that still has these powers. The rest of the states have been diminished, watered down. So JPs can only do certain things. CDECs in some states have just been done.
Right.
So, and the JPs have just, you can't do any, there's none of that you are to be the check and balance on the powers of state authorities in the others. So Queensland needs to be the benchmark for the standard operating procedures of holding employees to account of their actions. And they have indemnity on on probably too many things. They have indemnity and they're exempt from. And, there's so much wrong here at the moment that's against human values and human rights. And it's been perpetuated by the corporate money that's involved in our government. Economics and politics, you can't divorce from it,
Yeah.
Ronnie Chan's thing. But it doesn't mean you can't keep an eye on it. Like, no. This lobbying thing's just way out of hand.
Well, it certainly sounds sensible to have something that keeps these politicians accountable, so that if corruption happens, if certain policies are being presented or even government contracts are being awarded because there's benefit to them either while they're seating or after the fact or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, after the fact.
Yeah. That there is a body that keeps them accountable so that those deals don't happen. Because it is the lobbying and the incentives financially to the individual that's going to sway people. And I would be the first one to say you'd be arrogant to say you wouldn't be tempted.
Human nature.
Every single person, if you were sitting there and someone said, "Hey mate, look, it's just one road contract. It's just one hole in the ground. You do that, your family will never have to pay for anything ever again." Right? even to say I would never take it, but I would be tempted, right? I don't know because I've never been faced with that situation, but I would like to be honest enough to say that would be tempting to anyone. So I understand why politicians take those deals. What I'm saying is having that accountability so that they go, if I do this, the ramifications outweigh the benefits of the lobbying is sensible. It sounds sensible to me.
Yeah. We need a council of overseers, that just are in the interests of the people. They can't be bought. They can't be bribed. Like, I find great strength in going, no, you can't buy me, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're cowards too. I've got the chin here, I might as well keep it out there. They're cowards because they don't do anything. They would not come and stand in front of you, look you in the eye and go, this is what you're going to have to do. They get other people to do it and they hide behind the door. You try getting in touch with a politician now, phoning his office. Like, you're getting the handler. If you at all get in, you're getting the handler. You're not getting the politician you want to talk to. Even if you vote for the politician you want, you're not getting him because he's giving his votes to somebody else. So you can really see that from my position as a JP, that's a violation of his rights because he wanted Zach. And now you're putting in Bob Brown. I like Bob. Bob's a good bloke. I just saw a thing with him. But we need that. We need watchers. Otherwise, the kids in the kindergarten will go stupid. And an interview that Bob Carr did maybe a month ago now, the ex-Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister, Bob Carr, he had stark revelations about the amount of lobbying money that's in with our politicians. The amount of politicians, and it's Israel, who are lobbying the most. They have an office in every city in the country and they lobby perfectly. There's 71 politicians that they've lobbied and taken to Israel as goodwill towards.
Yeah, there's a guy on Punters Politics, Conrad, right? So he's obviously his big thing, and I mention his name because a lot of people listening will know him because he's quite famous now. His big thing is against lobbyists, mining lobbyists. So he's trying to get a people's lobbyist, right? So he's trying to do the same thing you're doing, but on a different pathway, which is something that we talked about before we started the interview, is that all of these issues that we see in the world, whether it be the Israel-Palestine or it be renewable energy or, take your pick of divisive issues, if everyone took a really hard introspective look at what's motivating them for their side of the argument, either side, doesn't matter which side it is, that the common thread is compassion for people and what they believe is the most good for the most amount of people. I think, honestly, most people would feel the same way. And if people could at least see that that's the goal, it would at least change your view of the person you're conversing with.
Yes.
To at least allow respectful debate and conversation, because you go, all right, you want to get to the end goal this way. I think we need to go this way. But at least we can both agree that we've got a very similar end goal.
Yeah.
It would be really nice if people could view things that way.
How do we compromise and meet up? I'm not going to get all I want, you're not going to get all you want, but we're going to get somewhere where we're both comfortably happy with this. So let's do that.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to get to that point,
So what are you hopeful to achieve with these 100 JPs, 300 JPs, however many you get on board? Like, practically speaking, looking forward, are you optimistic?
Yeah, I am. Because I got approached. We were at a gathering and then everyone was talking about the overreach, bedroom tax, like spare bedroom tax. No,
don't get me started.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And there's so many points now that are ridiculous, but it's affecting us at a soul level. People are going to sleep thinking about this. They're waking up thinking about it. I know a woman who's working 3 jobs and she had to put groceries back the other day because she didn't have enough money in her account. This woman's out there, single mum, blah, 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 working hard. And that hurts. That, it was like, oh.
Yeah, that shouldn't be happening in Australia.
And that's happening across the board here at the moment, and so I'm at the end of my time, basically, I might have 15, 20 years left or whatever. So this is not about me. this Council of Justices needs to be in place. The Council of 300 or whatever, the Council of Justices needs to be in place way, way down the track, long after I'm gone. Because to put this together would be really great, and then for me to just, I've got to go to the toilet, sneak out the back and go back to sitting around a fire minding my own business. That's what I wanted to do, you know. You know, if things were better, I wouldn't be doing this. But this, and they've proved they can't be trusted, you know. So this has to be in place for eternity until we learn as a society and humanity that, okay, there's certain things we can and we can't do. That was way too much. You know, we've just stretched that boat too far, and it broke on us. So that's where I see the councils going, and to enact action, the justices of the peace around Australia, so that we've all got the same powers. And then that leads into the Commonwealth, because this was brought down in 1195 from the King. So in essence, the JPs today are working under the authority of King Charles, the King of England, under his authority, appointed by the Attorney General here. So
it does seem like JPs should be a federal constitution thing rather than state.
One of my beliefs is that we should have at least 200 JPs sitting in federal parliament. Pay for their lunch, their breakfast and their cup of tea. Don't give them any money, don't remunerate them, cover their costs to be there. But they sit there and they watch what's going on. In every state parliament, 50 JPs, what he's doing, keeping an eye on them. Once you start watching what the dog's doing, the dog will keep looking over his shoulder to make sure, you know, am I okay? Yeah, you're okay, mate, that's all good. But you can't poo over there, mate. You know, there needs, I need boundaries, we need boundaries. So to set that up as one body that's all on the same page in the country, then take it to New Zealand, and then take it to Canada, because they're part of the Commonwealth, and then take it to the UK, where the justices of the peace.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is a Commonwealth thing. We take it to the South Pacific Islands. We take it to anywhere. Like, what's Australia constitute of? Norfolk Island, Cocos Islands, something else, and Christmas Island. No other lands. So Australia was never part of Australia under the UK because the land was already inhabited. So if you want to go down that path, you know, which is deep.
We'll save that for another day.
Yeah, we'll do that for another one. But that's the thing, that under this Commonwealth thing, if we action the true powers that were granted the justices of the peace initially, then the single mums have a chance. The single dads have a chance. I've been a single dad. That's a tough gig. Like you thought being human was a tough gig. To be a single dad, man, we weren't cut out for that, you know. And mums do it as second nature, you know. It's like, you know, they hold the power. The women hold the power, you know. Anyway, that's another story as well. But we need that, of that action of, okay, these guys have the power. They can't be bought. They can't be bribed.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? Where do you go if you can't bribe somebody?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, and that's what you would like to have in your leaders. You don't want to have a council of people because you don't trust your leaders. It would be nice to have leaders, but we don't live in a perfect world. I mean, you read the Catholic Charter. I mean, in the Bible, it talks about the meek will inherit the earth, and people read that as meek as weak. But the translation for meek is those that wield power but use it for good. Mm-hmm. They will inherit the earth. That's what you need as a leader. Someone who has the power, that is an orator, that is a well-respected person that could do whatever they want, and people would just go, we'll follow you into anything. And they go, I'm going to use this for good. That's what you want, right? Yeah. I don't see it at the moment. I honestly think using Queensland as an example, David Christoforley is trying.
Yeah, I'm thinking that way too.
He's doing better than previous governments have. No one's perfect, and I wouldn't be if I did it either, right? So credit where credit is due. But with what you're doing, because it seems very necessary, do you have a time frame from where you are now to sort of having something tangible established so that you can step away and it just is self-sustaining, or you're just early days?
We're early days, but the wheels are turning. The response, because I got asked by the community at that gathering, well, you're a Justice of the Peace, you do something. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. And they went, well, you're a JP, and you have the power to do something, and you do anything? And I was like, wow. And I went, actually, you're right. Yeah. No, leave it with me, I'll get back to you. So the response that I've got by saying to people, hey, look, how do you feel about this? I've been approached by businessmen and just people in the street, just people that I know, that are, okay, we've had enough of this. What can you do? So the response that I've had has been strong. Mm-hmm. And a lot stronger than it was through that COVID period. Because I was signing stat decks for not wearing masks and not getting jabs, and because that was anyway, another story. Yeah, I could go down that path. But yeah, there needs it just has to get done. That we take that responsibility and we look after the community. And we go through we sacrifice for the better community, like community, common unity.
Yeah, of course.
So like I'm at the back end of it.
But it would be nice to leave a legacy, right? To know that your kids and grandkids...
You have to. Like my whole thing should be to be a better person than I was the person yesterday. That's my goal every day, is to be, I want to try and be a little bit better, which makes it better. Like I can't look after anybody else if I'm not looking after myself first. So if we can look after that council of justices for the people, everything will be okay. Just pay it forward if you want.
Yeah. I like your motivations behind this. I like that you're doing this. I like that you have an attitude of sacrifice for others. It's a stoic truth that people knew a long time ago. And the world has become more selfish in more recent times. And maybe affluence promotes that. But it's nice that people are realising, hey, maybe it's time to maybe sacrifice a little bit of myself to make life a bit easier for others who can't stand up or speak for themselves.
I'm finding that now, Zach, that more people are going, this isn't about service to self. Oh, you lied to me. This is about service to others. That's where I feel really good.
Isn't it funny? The more that you give to others, the better you feel. Yeah. So it's almost selfish to be selfless.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something in that, right?
Yeah, fully.
I mean, the Bible puts it as it's better to give than to receive.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why that wisdom has hung around for thousands of years, because it's true.
That was all Jesus' teachings, No one's come to save you. It's already there. The kingdom of the Creator is within you. Look within. Go within.
So for anyone who's listening to this, who is either inspired by this or even just listening going, okay, that sounds great in theory. Are you hopeful for the future? Are you hopeful that what you're setting out to achieve will come to fruition, that we will see something tangible, whether it be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, it's not going to be that long. No, this needs to be action really quickly now, because they're putting in these, the digital currency, the ID, the digital ID.
Yeah.
Like, no. You're far too much in our lives. You're far too much in our pockets. You need to back this way up, and there needs to be guidelines around everything that's doing around that,
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we don't address that, this will be real messy. Taking cash off you, closing bank accounts, doing whatever they want because there was a profit in it. Profit at all costs, Lee.
Yeah, if anyone who hasn't read 1984 by George Orwell, it's worth a read. It's worth a read. Oh, because the amount of things that are popping up now, you're like, oh, I read that in a book.
Yeah, mate, watch the movie and then watch Animal Farm.
Yeah, George Orwell's a smart cookie.
You seen Animal Farm?
Yeah, my brother actually, just I digress, was acted in a play of Animal Farm.
Did he?
Yeah, when he was younger.
Like, you watch that and read 1984. Like,
it's scary.
Yeah, you're going to be in a corner going...
I know, it's so scary.
It is, isn't it? And it's coming too. It's,
Which, by the way, as an aside, for anyone who doesn't see value in the arts, there's a reason why creatives view the world differently. Because they take the way life is now to the extreme, going, if things got really bad, this is what it would be like. It's amazing how often the world degenerates to what artists 50 years ago, 100 years ago envisioned. Mm-hmm. It's because they see the world differently.
Yeah.
So the arts are important in education. Just putting that out there. Anyway, that's an aside.
Yeah. Well, education. I was picking up one of the great nieces the other day from school, and this woman came up to me with a little cap on, and she goes, "Oh, would you like my flyer?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good, thanks." And I went, "You Queensland Teachers Union?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "What do you got?" She goes, "Oh, we want to address the way the education system's being run in Queensland at the moment." So the teachers are pissed. Mm. They're upset about the way this is going. So this is across the board. This isn't just a few sections of people that are upset. And what we're proposing, it's not going to agree with everybody, but you can't agree with everybody unless you're giving them all $1. Yeah, agree on that.
Yeah, you can't.
But the majority, I'm very hopeful, and I've got a lot of faith in humanity at the moment going, yeah, all right, I'm prepared to just give a little bit to take that for my children, for my grandchildren, for your kids. I'm responsible for your children. Like, if something's going on, that's my role in life, is to do no harm, and I'm here to serve. I'm here to help. How can I help you? I'm here to serve.
Is there anything that we haven't covered? Because there's a lot of areas that you're passionate about, I can tell. and you've got a lot of information. Is there anything that I guess I haven't gleaned out of you that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Oh, man. Yeah,
if there's nothing pressing, it's fine. yeah. But anything that you think might...
No, about that JP stuff, around that's the main crux of this, that the justices of the peace do have the authority, and it's granted authority. It just needs to be actioned, and it needs to be put in place. And their employees, they're not deities, they're not gods, they're not kings, queens, princes and everything. These are people who were granted the authority to represent, and they're not doing that.
And granted that by us. Like, they're our elected officials.
Yes. So they need to be held accountable.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
There's a whole lot that needs to be tweaked. You don't pull the government apart. That'd be silly, because everyone's working. But that upper management, that needs to be tweaked.
I agree. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Within a year. That's the answer to your question. How long?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the reason I asked that question is a lot of people will say this needs to be done, or I want to do this. But if you're listening, you don't have that, because the person who makes the statement has a timeline in their head, because they're the one that's their goal. But if someone who's listening goes, I think that's great, and I want it now, and then in 10 years' time they see nothing, they're disappointed, because they think, well, they said they were going to do that, but maybe that was always the timeline in that person's head. So that's sort of why, if you have a timeline in mind, it's helpful for people listening to go, oh, well, that's really soon.
My timeline's yesterday.
Yeah, great. No, but that's great. Yeah. That really helps people listening to go, that's imminent. Like, maybe that's something I can get behind. And maybe that's another question, is you're obviously reaching out to JPs to say, the more that we can get on board, the better. Is there anything that non-JPs can do to help, to be involved, or not really?
Yeah, become a JP. Go and become a JP. You can do a 2-day course, or you can do the 12-week thing where you apply, they send you papers, you send papers back, it goes backwards and forwards for 12 weeks, and then you get your appointment, you get sworn in by the magistrate down your local courthouse. But yeah, don't take the knee, and go no. Say no to drugs. Say no to laws that don't suit, to legislation that doesn't suit, bylaws that don't suit. Just stand up and back your JPs. Get in touch with your JPs and say to them that I would like you to do something for me. I would like you to do this for me. So enable them and action them by going, hey, listen, I'm not happy with this. Can you do this for me? I don't know how many times I've gone and seen politicians or police officers in their station. No, you can't do that.
So actually, listen, so the document that you were reading from, the JP, is it a code of ethics?
Yeah.
Or the charter of JPs?
The code of conduct.
Just in case someone wants to look it up on the Queensland Government website.
Yeah.
So the Code of Conduct, Justice of the Peace, Commissioners for Declarations. So if anyone wants to look it up to verify anything that you've said today, it's right there. And it'll be on the Queensland Government website. Yeah,
you just type in Justice of the Peace Queensland.
And it'll be there.
And there's heaps there about what you can do, So the JPs don't sign papers. They do have extraordinary powers. And
well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you do with this. I will leave you with the final question that I ask everyone. Despite everything that you see, and we did talk about we did basically say that the future is looking bleak unless people can stand up and take responsibility. Are you hopeful for the future?
Yeah, I am now. Yeah. I wasn't 10 years ago. I was thinking, wow, this is... Because it was only the old crew, the old hippies that were standing up, and then all of a sudden... Your generation, like my son, he's 36 this year. So that generation stuff finally going, you remember when you were talking about that thing? Yeah, that's actually going on. Yeah. Oh, I'm not happy about that. Oh, thank you. So the mantle's been taken up by the younger generation. And what happened in Nepal?
I'm not across that.
Man, that was powerful. I'll just quickly touch on this, right? So the government was actually children of the politicians in Nepal were posting photos of themselves living this lavish lifestyle, lavish homes, big cars, parties, all the fancy gear, while the peasants were out in the street doing it tough. Kind of sounds familiar, right? Mm. So they did a Gen Z protest about, hang on, you guys are living this life of luxury and you're throwing it in our face while we're down here mixing mud, literally to build mud bricks to build our homes and stuff. That's not on. And it went viral over social media that these guys were doing this. And that brought up the heat from the Gen Z, Generation Z. And so it spread like wildfire through social media. So the government went, oh shit, and they shut down all the social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, shut down the whole lot. And Gen Z went, nah, we're not having that. You don't give us that and then just cut it off because you want to. Rioted. It got to the point within a couple of days where there was literally thousands of students on the streets because it was a Gen Z thing, it wasn't no old folks like me, but it was Gen Z. And then the government passed down like, no, they're getting too violent, they're getting too over the top. Shoot them. An order to shoot was passed down. And they killed 20, was it 30? There was over 20 Gen Z killed while they were still in their school uniform or their college uniform, like dead. That didn't go down well with the rest of them, so off it went. They chased the coppers down, the police down, they chased the parliament down, they burnt the parliament's house, they got the Prime Minister, chased him up the street, chased the Finance Minister down a river while they were throwing stuff at him, burnt everything government they could find. pulled the government apart, grabbed the police officers, stripped them, marched them down the street. These are all these young guys, 20 to 35 kind of stuff. Marched them down the street and went, we want new government. And they went on Jack Dorsey's new thing, BitChat. And they started it up with BitChat because that doesn't work on the internet, it works on Bluetooth. So they started this up and they went, okay, we want a new government and we want new people in. There were stories that they killed the Prime Minister's wife. Like they dragged him out in the streets, they gave it to him, for the corruption thing. And once it had quietened down bang, overnight. Okay, we've got rid of them, we've got rid of them, we've got rid of them. What are we going to do? We're going to do this. The next post that came out was thousands of Nepalese in the street cleaning up with dustpans, trucks, buckets, and cleaned the whole thing up and elected a new parliament. Like, that's worthy of attention. So they've gone to that level and then they've gone within hours, just bang, let's clean this up, let's get back on track.
I hope that we don't get there. I really hope that we can see positive change before that.
Yeah, we don't, like...
It's what we started with. What we started with was the cycle of history is, whether it be socialism or capitalism, it gets to its peak, then it starts to degenerate, and then it ends in violence and lots of people die. Yeah. I would hope that we can learn from history so that no one needs to die. Yeah. That's my hope.
Yeah. That's the role of a warrior, to look after the old, the infertile, the infirm, the lesser of society, that can't look after themselves.
Yeah.
Just that whole thing. The fighting is the very, very, very last resort. That's of a true warrior, that's a bloke who will come in and take you to account. Let's do this. That's his very, very last thing that he wants to do. So this can all be achieved peacefully, calmly, and it all just gets, okay, this is nothing personal, however, you're guilty of this crime and you're going to be held accountable. Number two's going up into it, and let's move on with this nice and peacefully. We're all big people now.
Yep.
I don't need another nana telling me what I can and can't do.
Yep.
So I'm hopeful of this now.
I'm good. Oh, good. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm wanting to share hope with people for the future. There's too much negativity online. Hopefully this is a little bit of hope for the future. But I appreciate you coming and telling your story.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me to throw it out there to it.
Been an absolute pleasure.
Where we put our attention, energy flows.
Correct.
That's where we'll flow it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
See you.